There's a tendency in spirituality to try to figure things out, right? Try to make sense of it, try to put it all together. But spirituality at its most essential, direct form is simple. Not easy, but simple. It's basically just two steps. One is discover your essential nature that's already present. And step two is learn to live from and as that spacious awakeness. Simple. What makes it difficult is that it's simple. The mind loves complexity. It loves convoluted things. It loves conspiracies. It loves to be engaged. It loves to try to figure things out. And we take that same thoroughly conditioned mind and bring it into spirituality, and it tries to use the same things that may have worked in other parts of our life fairly well, where we try to understand things. And, we may read, we may listen to teachers, we may turn on YouTube, we may, try to understand. And that there's a time and a place for that. But at the core of spirituality is simple. And the mind doesn't like that. The mind likes complexity. It likes to be challenged. It likes to be intrigued, likes to have things to do. And so we can be easily seduced by that, to be pulled off in many directions. And there are lots of directions in spirituality. Well, I would say as many directions in spirituality that you can go as in other parts of life. Many things to do, explore, chase down, see what's at the end of that road or this road. And in spirituality, it's the same way. If we aren't focused on what is truly essential, we can spend a lifetime exploring things. And the things that are available to explore are in many ways more intriguing than the essence of what spirituality is really about. I mean, it's much more fascinating to the mind to talk about altered states, talk about spiritual powers, talk about eternal bliss, talk about evolution of awareness for humanity. I mean, there are many, many concepts that are very appealing to the mind. Personal growth, personal, becoming something greater than what we are now. All of this is very appealing to the mind. Mind loves that. And it doesn't matter that, if, decades of meditation are called for, or, sacrifices, or, special diets, or, years in challenging environments, we can say, oh no, I'm good for it. I really, really want this. And to the mind, it's very appealing. So, there are marvelous adventures to be had. So compared to that, when we hear something like, you are already what you seek, it doesn't sound that interesting. It's like, well, I got into spirituality in the first place because I wasn't all that happy with how life looked. And if you're telling me that I'm already what I seek, where's the payoff in that? So we can become, discouraged before we even start on this more direct path that I'm talking about. But the truth is, you are already what you seek. We may not know that, or we may have heard it, and maybe we even believe it, But until it's discovered, it is it feels like one of those tricky spiritual things, like you're not quite sure if it's true or not, or is it just some sort of trickery for the mind to play with. But that actually is the case. And if we allow that possibility, then we can settle into seeing what's already here rather than chasing something that's not here, seeing what's already present that we're not quite able to see is a different pathway than chasing the next idea, the next experience, the next teacher, the next philosophy, the next whatever. So we can easily get lost in overthinking if we believe that we know how all of this works. If we're quite certain that awakening is as a result of so many years of meditation, adopting the right set of beliefs, fixing one's karma, having the right diet, whatever our set of beliefs are that we believe are prerequisite for waking up to our essential being, then those beliefs become our barriers. Because if we believe that, then it's like, well, I have to deal with that first before I can awaken. So the certainty of our belief actually becomes the barrier. It's much more useful just to remain with a sense of genuine curiosity about what's living this life. What is this? What is this about? I know my storyline, I know my name and where I live and my circumstances and what I'm good at and what I'm not, and my habits and my skill set and all of that. But what is it actually that's living this life? Right? It seems like until we actually know the answer to that question, it brings up the question of why are we doing whatever it is that we may be doing, however we're expending our energy. If we don't know who it is that's doing that, it just raises the question about, well, why am I doing that? I don't know who it is that's choosing to do that, or why, or for what end, or for whose benefit. Right? So it seems like we can come back to the first order of business is to discover who we are. Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be given." He's not talking about kingdom of heaven after you die. That wouldn't make any sense. Seek ye first this kingdom of heaven after death, and then, that doesn't make any sense. He's talking about what is available here in this lifetime. He says this the same thing elsewhere, where he says the kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth and we don't see it. It's available now. And Bodhidharma, the first Zen patriarch in China, said essentially the same thing. See your true nature, become Buddha. Simple, direct. Seek you first the kingdom of heaven, same thing. Find your true nature and become Buddha, and then live your life. Right? Get on with it. So one of the ways we can overthink things is to believe that what the spiritual path is about is to develop a comprehensive philosophical package where all the parts fit together nicely, and I feel comfortable with it. Right? And so we can. It's sort of like a bonsai bush, sort of trim a little here, let it grow a little over there, and eventually it'll become, our pride and joy. Here's my philosophy of spirituality. But thinking won't ever get you there. It may be helpful for a time to sort of, sort out basic principles, avenues that are not worth chasing down, narrowing our search. We can do that, through reasonable thinking. But at some point, it is essential that we come to the realization that the mind's ability to think is structured in words, and therefore everything that the mind can do is a conception about life at best, right? So being a conception about life is a radical reduction from the reality of life as a whole into some word-based explanation, justification, philosophy about what life is. But that word-based description will never be anywhere close to the reality of what it is to live this life, to experience it fully, right? I mean, just simple things. I mean, we can talk about how warm or cold a glass of water is, but until we actually drink a sip of it, we don't know. But as soon as we do have that direct experience, we know exactly how warm or cold it is. We don't need to then explain it to ourselves, right? It's a direct, firsthand sensation, perception, right? We don't need to reduce it to words. And there are many, many things in our life that are far more real when experienced directly than when we attempt to reduce it to a concept, an explanation, a description. Whether we do it in our own head or we say it out loud. It's the same sort of abstraction from reality. So we can just see the mind's tendency to do that, and notice that the mind does that. We've given it authority to do that over a long period of time, and so it will continue to do that. We don't have to try to stop it, but we can just see the limitations of it. In other words, we can cease being fascinated by what the mind is telling us in hopes of finding that hidden gem in that stream of thought. And when we relax our fascination with what the mind is saying to itself, what remains is just this awake presence that's always been there. And we tend to ignore it because it's always been there, because it's in some very real sense, the most simple thing in our life. Even though it's totally mysterious, we'll never really understand it, but it is, we can experience it because we are living it. We're actually living it every moment. We just think it's me. I'm doing it. I'm the one that's thinking. I'm the one that's doing. But the reality of it is that there is this aware presence within which the body thinks and does and goes about its business. So trying to develop this sort of comprehensive philosophy about awakening is vastly different than actually remaining in this sense of presence of being. Because we can develop all the philosophy in the world about it, but without that direct experience, we can't know whether the water is warm or cold. We can't know really anything about it. we just know or think we know ways that it may have been historically described, but without it being a firsthand experience, it has very little value. So that's one way we can overthink it, trying to put it into a composite philosophy where all the parts fit together and we can sort of relax. And, if we ever question it and we can trot out our philosophy saying, well, I've thought it all out, here it is, I know how everything works. So that's one of the ways we can get lost. Another way we can overthink it is by comparing and trying to reconcile different teachings. Different teachings all, if they're of any value at all, they are all pointing to the same reality. They must, if they're to be of any value. But the pointers may be quite different. Pointers can be, culturally unique. There can be different methods. There can be different places on one journey where, one set of pointers is useful and at another time it may not be useful. But the pointers are always towards the same one reality. So it's not like one is necessarily better than the other. It's so if we're trying to, reconcile all these different pointers and figure out which one's right and which one's wrong, what's a far better use of our time is to pick one that resonates and go fully into it with its depth. Because most teachings hold together within themselves, but if we jump around and cherry pick what we like and just do it based on what we think is right, that sometimes we can't really get to the depth of it. One of the examples that Adyashanti was fond of saying was that if you're digging a well and looking for water, you can try to dig either 100 one-foot deep wells, or you could dig one 100-foot well, which is more likely to get water. So sometimes if there's a teaching that resonates, it's more useful to just be fully in it, explore its depth, and maybe someday we find out that it didn't take us all the way home, but, we learned something and then we're just that much wiser and pick another path to go down even further. So, if we're doing it out of genuine curiosity and earnestness and integrity, then we'll find what we need to find. What may appear to be a detour, we find out later was just necessary because at the time we thought it was the best choice that we had, and we chose to do it. And then we find out maybe later that, okay, well, that teaching was maybe helpful in a certain regard, but limited. Okay, fine, great. And we go and look a little deeper somewhere else. So there's nothing lost by it. But if we are jumping around or trying to piece together these different teachings, it can occupy the mind without benefit. Let's see. Another way we can get lost in the teaching is hoping that somebody else will do it for us. In other words, a dependence on a teacher to do the heavy lifting. The only thing a teacher can really do is point in the right direction. If there's a trust in what the teacher's saying, and then you can look in that direction and find out for yourself if it's true or not. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Who knows, right? But if if a teacher's saying, okay, look in this direction, this is a fruitful direction, you still have to be the one to walk down that road. But, it's not helpful to argue or try to, game the journey in a sense. It's like, okay, this pointer was in a useful direction according to this person, so I'll give it a try. I mean, that's the beauty of this. It doesn't require a belief in anything outside of our experience. Maybe some trust to the extent of being willing to walk down that path for certain ways, yes, but not to believe that that is the answer, right? You have to find that out for yourself. Otherwise, just adopting somebody else's answer and trying to put those pieces together is just the mind trying to actually avoid any real investigation. So we find in spirituality, the real tipping point is when there is this moment where we realize that what is being asked for is not the adoption of a set of beliefs outside of ourselves. It's actually much more intimate than that. It's actually demanding that we find out what this life is actually about, what is actually living this life. It couldn't be more intimate, right? And so that it's not working with an set of beliefs at sort of at arm's length. It comes in very personal, and that can be challenging. But what that requires is really what this directive of look within is about. It's really looking inward beyond all the psychological issues and the storyline and things that we think we have to fix and problems in our life, and all of that is still on the outside. It's still what is observed. So we can just pass right by all of that and seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, right? Get to the heart of the matter, and then we can deal with the psychological issues that may remain later on. But if we get caught up in trying to fix the psychological issues first, then we're on a lifelong path to sort of become worthy enough to awaken. I have to fix all this first, and then maybe I'll awaken. So there's an assumption that I need to try to figure it out. If I figure it out first, then I can relax, right? But the truth is just the opposite of that. The truth is, if I can relax about all these things that I think I need to fix, then I can realize what's true. So the relaxation is actually what comes first. It's not after I fix everything, after I figure everything out. Right? That trying to figure everything out first is just the mind's way of postponing our awakening and staying in charge. Right? So just come back to just this sense of being that we pointed to at the beginning, just a sense of being present and noticing what's arising within that field of awareness, thoughts, sensations, perceptions, feelings, memories, hopes, dreams, all of that. But see it as a bit removed from what we essentially are. Well, ultimately, it's all one thing, but it's helpful to view it from the perception of this awake presence and everything else arising within that. sort of the ultimate duality, the awake presence and everything else. And then at some point we realize they're both the same thing, but it's helpful to sort of consolidate that perceptive perception and really see that awake presence is what we are and is never absent. Formless, awake spirit. Just the simplicity of it. So just pay attention to anytime the mind is trying to drag us into conceptual thought, drag us into judgments, opinions, shoulds and shouldn'ts, rights and wrongs, all of that. Just notice that tendency. We don't have to make the mind stop doing that, and we don't have to try to figure out, is it right, is it wrong? Just see the mind, the way the mind is structured and how it operates. But see it from this perspective of this formless, alive presence. Simple. Recognize true nature, become Buddha.